Hello, and thank you for coming to the 2021 Lake County Film Festival, all virtual this year. And this is the Q&A for Planet B234, a narrative feature that we're showing at this year's festival. And I am pleased to introduce a whole mess of people. We have director Keely Sheridan, star Jorge Luna, and Carlos and Cesar, who did the sound and music as well. Anything else?
Moral support.
Well, I find that sound is one area where it's, there's a lot of things: on-set sound, sound editing, dialogue. If you're working in audio, you tend to have many hats.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that right?
We had somebody do sound on set. Like one of our producers, Jay Friedman Mendez, who couldn't join us today, but he did all on location sound. Him and Matt Barrera. And then Cesar and Carlos Ivan were the post-production masters.
And the mixer. And the
the mixer, we brought a mixer who's actually in Guayaquil, Ecuador. Diego Benalcázar. He's a incredible artist as well. So.
We got something coming.
Vacuum cleaner?
It's Cesar. Something on that end. I don't know.
Oh.
Do you have a Tesla coil there?
it's I know what it is. It's my computer. It gets loud.
Okay,
the fan.
The fan.
Yeah, there's a fan. Is it loud?
It was just for a little bit. Now it's
not anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not anymore.
Okay.
You're good.
Yeah, the fan is still going, but that means the noise reduction kicked in.
It was a cool sound.
I wish it was on this end.
Very meta, he's in all parts of the conversation.
Okay, well now I feel like I'm going to be less of a interviewer and more of like a circus. Keep everybody. Who wants to kick this off and tell me where the idea for this film came from? I'm assuming I'm looking at you, Keely, but
I know. I think it started with Jorge. I think.
Okay, Jorge, what can you tell us?
Yeah.
This film. In real life, I live far away from my son. Right. He lives in Los Angeles. At the time, he was living in Puerto Rico, and I was in New York. So whatever, far away. And
how old was he? Just so we can sort of paint a picture here.
When principal photography happened, he was around 13. But when I wrote the film, it was 2014 when I started. And then, so he was much younger.
So he was 8 or so.
About 8, yeah. And, we've always, ever since he was about 2-3 years old, he's lived, we both have lived far away from one another. So he comes and spends summers with me, and that's actually where we start in the movie, right? And I just got this idea of writing something that had a lot to do with my life, and because why not? Again, and then at the same time, I was listening to a lot of these and reading to news articles that talked about recent discoveries of like these exoplanets that NASA is considering for the next Earth, to become the next Earth. And then I just married those ideas and wrote a short film that was about 22 pages long. And then I showed it to Keely, and maybe she can take it from there.
Yeah, I have a co-writing credit on this, but really it's more of a copy editing credit, because Jorge had made the script and the story, and then I just came in and asked questions about it. I have the benefit of knowing both him and his son very well. Jorge and I are married, and I've known his son since he was about 8 years old. So it was kind of interesting for me as the outside eye in this relationship that had already been established to be the outside eye to this script that already had like a very kind of vivid identity for Jorge and on the page as well. And yeah, so we just sort of started teasing out ideas that were already there. By the time it came to me, there was maybe only but between when I read it and when we went into production, it was less than a year, I think. So once Jorge shared it, then we were pretty quick to move into production.
Cool. You know, I had a film, a documentary that we had this year called The Fable of a Song, and it charted how they created a song from the very first writing session all the way through. And it really has opened up a lot of philosophy over the last year and a half since I've seen the film, you know, about how you craft something. And, you know, basically the personal versus, you know, basically the song takes part of it is her specific experiences, you know, in this case about her father, and then it kind of opens up to more generality. And I think when I saw Planet B234, I really connected it to all the separations going on at the border. And so it's interesting to see that this is, you know, from before that, and it's actually a totally personal thing that then, you know, 2 years after you write it, it starts being a personal thing that, you know, so many thousands of people have to start dealing with, you know. Does that make sense? All right.
It does. I mean, it's also because I mean we have I don't know if this is what you're talking about, and you know, but we have a clear advantage as people being from Puerto Rico that we are U.S. citizens. So I guess we didn't have like that, you know, turmoil or tribulation of having to deal with visa or being apart because of borders. It was more of a, you know, a divorce, right? It was more of a separation from his mother, and then both of us choosing to live in different cities, and then that's that. But then of course it does resonate with what you're saying in a really really big way. I can only imagine. I can't even fathom what it could be, because I personally know people that are from Mexico and their entire family, kids and wife are in Mexico, and they are working here to make money, to sentiment. It's a whole thing. So it does definitely resonate.
It's interesting how something so personal can then speak to tons of people who have to deal with the exact same thing as you. So, so Keely, you picked it up, and you know, what were the next steps about shooting? Where did you shoot, by the way?
So we shot. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, because it's some parts look so amazing and otherworldly, you know.
So it was really special because we shot all of the planet stuff is shot on the property of my childhood best friend's home. It was her mother's house, and so it's, you know, land that I grew up on and had a really deep connection to. We kind of dove quickly into production because we realized that the story changes when Otto is a teenager. It's a little bit different, and that character is a little less vulnerable and a little more aware. And so we were basically racing against the clock. We wanted to shoot it while he still looked and sounded like a kid. And so we're like, we got to shoot it this summer. We know we've always had Otto during the summers, and we knew if we waited one more year, he would sound like a little man, and he did the following year. So we were we wanted him to still seem like a kid. So we shot half of it in Amsterdam, New York, which is where that property is, and then the other half in our apartment in Wood in northern Manhattan. We had the advantage of kind of having full run of both of those locations, but also one of them was our home, so we wanted to shoot as quick as we could to have our home back. And then we passed it pretty throughout that entire process. We passed it pretty quickly to sound, because I think a big part of this film is the sort of the fact that being alone isn't silent. There's a lot of sound that fills loneliness. There's a lot of tangible space and emotion in being solitary. And we knew that we needed to hear it. And we were so lucky to have both Cesar and Carlos Ivan, who are incredibly gifted artists, and also who were able to sort of teach us about the film that we had shot through the way that they interpreted it. And so we moved very quickly through production. I think it was maybe 17 days or something all together that we shot, and then started cutting and handing stuff over as quick as we could.
What was the editing and post sound like? Can you guys tell me anything about the score? You definitely have some parts that are very kind of in your face, very you're very aware of the score. What was there a philosophy behind that, or
You want to start, Cesar?
Okay. I think that because there's so little spoken dialogue, we knew that we had to touch on a lot of psychological elements on it, and we used both music and sound for that strategically. There are many things that um, have texture and in the sound design, and sometimes we would then lower lower that to a second plane and have the music take over. And like I focused more on sound design, even though I worked on music, but Carlos took care of most of the music. Um, and I can tell you that sometimes even the dogs are like in the background are placed there strategically to portray the psychological world inside Jorge. Um, like how many little tricks can I explain? Like can I tell you about like for example, even though there are no bears in the movie, there's the sound of a bear. It's placed strategically and designed and shaped into something else that works psychologically. Um,
why
yeah,
a
and
bear? Why a bear?
because the growl of a bear and the low frequencies work on us as something that scares us, because a vocalization from such a low pitch projects a large animal, and therefore we would be scared of something that's way larger than us.
Do
So
you know do you know what point in the film that was? What was going on in that moment? Because I didn't know
um,
there.
it's in one of the scenes where they are in the forest and he's looking for Otto and can't find him. Part of the ambience in that scene, even though it's not very upfront, it's not upfront at all. Part of the ambience, what may seem like a wind, it's actually the sound of a bear that's been manipulated to sound a little bit more like a wind. But the acoustics of the bear's mouth gives it that depth, and that's one of the things that we are, that's our job. Our job is to enhance the film experience on a psychological level, especially if people don't even notice.
Cool. Carlos, do you want to talk about the music at all?
Yeah. So I was one of the last persons to enter the team. Cesar called me one day. He's like, I need help. It's we have this movie, and I need to divide the work with somebody. And I thought about you, and I said yes immediately. I met Jorge and Keely via messages and emails, and I saw the movie, and I wanted to start writing music right away. So Cesar started with editing backgrounds and dialogue. I jump into the music, and all I wanted to do was follow Jorge's and Otto's emotions. That's all I wanted to do, and then build around that. So between our internal conversations between me and Cesar, and um, trying to feel what Jorge and Otto were feeling, I started writing music. So I try to, when he was alone in his apartment, try to make it feel even more lonely. And when he was in or they were in the planet, I was trying to make them feel that they were somewhere else that doesn't really exist. That was my inspiration. Hopefully we were able to do it and project that, but that was the main inspiration. And I started writing, and I will bounce ideas to Cesar. Cesar will write something on top of it and bring it back to me, and I keep writing until we were able to show to Keely and Jorge, and they made the final decision, and we put all this together.
I don't know how accurate this was, but I felt like on the planet there was definitely more electronic and more rhythmic pieces.
Sure.
Than in real life. Was there?
Right. The real life, there were more organic sounds, except that part where he's looking from the kitchen to the little monsters. So that was that moment where we tied both worlds. But yeah, there were more organic sounds in the real world and more electronic, synthetic, and layers of different things. There's just like the bear. There's a lot of sounds hidden in there, just to not to catch the sound, but to feel something weird.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously we've been in like an electronic music, world for decades, but it's definitely had that, kind of, I don't know, like quiet Aphex Twin parts I heard where it was like, and kind of, I don't know, rhythmic and I'm not sure exactly. So
don't worry, like sometimes when we talk about music, we describe things just like that. So yeah, well, it's the easiest way to describe it.
If we were hanging out, I would like go find the part and be like, oh yeah, it's like this, and I'd play you something else. But I don't. It's like like building a house without your toolbox. Like I don't have anything here to. I just have to go whatever.
Yeah, if somebody would listen to our conversations while we were talking about the movie, they would think that we were out of our minds.
Okay, that's good. All right, can you tell me where the process of writing this, what parts or how much is an allegory versus where it's based on something real, or how much is just completely made up? I think about things like the desperation of not hearing back. Is that based on reality of not hearing back? Like, does that make
that's real life to this day. Well, he's 16 now, so 16 and a half. So yeah, still. But yeah, I mean, I guess, there's a lot of truth. What?
Your worry, your character seems very worried about his well-being, and I'm hoping that's not like a real situation, that you didn't have moments like, obviously people don't, contact, but I'm hoping that's, people don't answer the phone sometimes, but I'm hoping that's not that there was, actual as much concern as your character is experiencing,
I mean, I guess I could say I feel that there's moments in which Jorge's, like my character in the film, is more perhaps despondent, or perhaps like begrudgeful, or kind of like, oh, you're not writing back. Like it's more at perhaps that than at least from the person who this is based off of, right? And the person who wrote it. Like in my life, it would be more more like a grudge than anything else, right? Of course, there would be worry, but it was more like, where is he? Like, why is he not getting back to me? He has a phone, I pay for that phone, right? So
I know that's gotta be hard and frustrating when you realize you're angry at your own child. I mean, I do it. I mean, even just being gone for a week or two at a time, you know, it's tough. My son's 8. I'm sorry, my daughter's 8. My son just turned 10, and you know, yeah, it's got to be frustrating when you're, especially if you're doing something, and then it's like you have some time, and then you know call and you don't get anybody. And it's like and you call back, and you know. But your character really experiences what seems like more fear and you know as well.
Well, especially because of immediacy of the whole thing, right? Like nowadays we're used to pressing a button and just like having anything and everything we want, you know, and yeah, the freaking phone, right, is something that has ill accustomed us into this immediacy that people have other things to do. What if he's in school? What if he has homework? What if he, and that, you know, it is creating that adjustment is where the drama lies, right? So that's what perhaps I tried to capture, or we tried to capture, Keely and I, you know, whilst writing or whilst, you know, editing the script. So.
Keely, it was interesting to hear. I didn't realize that you were married to Jorge when I'd seen the film until just now. And I kind of had in my little notes to ask you about basically the female gaze in this film. And, you know, did you basically, you know, make a new addendum to Chekhov's rule that says, you know, if a character mentions being naked in the water in the first act, then they need to be naked in the water in the third act?
You'll be shocked to know that the naked in the water wasn't my idea. Yeah, it's, you know, it's funny because right, there are no distinctly female characters in the film. Even the character Yoko is much more ambiguous, and gender's really not or sorry, Hiroi Kinoshita, the actor's name is Yoko. That's why I call that character Yoko. But it was interesting as a woman to you know, I just, especially, this is something Jorge has spoken about a lot, but I think seeing tenderness in male relationships in films and seeing complexity and vulnerability between males is something that's lacking. And because I have this kind of front row seat to the real life version of this relationship, I experience and see the tenderness that exists, that sometimes like only an outsider can see, right? Because when you're in a relationship, you see what you want and you see if the person is or isn't giving it to you. But from the outside, I can see the love and the tenderness from both sides. So that was something I tried really hard to keep there, were the moments when the characters, though they really never synced up, were kind of reaching out for each other. Because yeah, there's got to be love in this film, or else none of it matters, you know.
Yeah, the I think it was your director's comment, you know, stuck with me right away, even before I saw the film, about you know, male vulnerability being something so rarely on display. We have another film we're showing called Cat Daddies, which is literally about men having cats, which feels like you know, there's toxic masculinity that says no, you can't, you're effeminate if you have cats, you know, and it's all about how they're not, you know, and there's firefighters and stuntmen who have it. So I definitely appreciate seeing outside of those, you know, standard boxes. Let's see. You know, I took a brief note when we first see Jorge's apartment, that it seems to be filmed from an angle that's just super cramped. Was that was that on purpose? Like
That's totally staged. Our apartment was huge and luxurious. There's no truth to that at all. Yeah, I mean, it was shot in a Manhattan studio, and you know, it's funny. I think that was, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's part of like the experience in the beginning of the film, is that when these characters are together, when Otto comes to stay with Jorge for the summer, it is close quarters and it is like intense, and they go from not having seen each other at all to like smushed up against each other, which is the real life experience too. I mean, we were 3 people sharing a Manhattan studio every summer when Otto came. So yeah, the cramped, the like, kind of closing in tightness of the real world, and then the expansiveness of the planet makes a really compelling argument for skipping off into fantasy.
Sure. I just have another note here that says ends too soon. Are we is there more to tell? Is there going to be a Planet 2342?
I don't think so.
Jorge?
No, we're off to write. We're writing the next project, which has nothing to do with this film. I think the length of it has a lot to do with the fact that we did principal photography, and we were at a crossroads, honestly. In the editing room, we got to a point with our editor, Keely, and myself, in which we said, we have a solid 41 minutes. What do we do? Do we cut it to 12 minutes and that would crush me? Or do we do pickups and add to the story and make it more, like make it an actual feature? And we did pickups in Yucca Valley in California at Joshua Tree, and at the apartment again in Manhattan. All of that, we added that telescope timeline or storyline.
Oh, sure.
All of that we added after, and that's Keely as a writer, like she really shone beautifully, because it's just, she then started adding these beautiful elements based off of, for example, the moth, and how that progression, like metaphorical progression of the moth going to turning into a pupa and disappearing, and how that is an allegory to Jorge's life or to Otto growing up, right? So it's this whole progression of things. As far as, if you ask me about the time, I feel that's the time that, I'm not the director, but for me, I feel that is the time that this story needed to be said coherently. And I feel like where we leave the movie and where we leave Jorge, where we leave Otto, it's this, especially Otto, right? Like I every time I watch the movie, I'm like crying at the end, because I'm like, oh my God, he left him. Like he just, where, like the kid, what is it? Like, what like it's this thing of like the kid is by himself, like with his mom, but like there's no dad anymore, right? So it's this whole thing.
What is that at the end? Like what happens at the end?
Keely, what happens at the end?
Yeah.
I think I think just ultimately it's too much, the sort of the back and forth, and because we drop into this film at a very advanced point in this relationship, and the problems of this relationship haven't just started. This has been building over the course of this kid's life. And if this is a 13-year-old, that's 13 years of missing someone. That's 13 years of wishing that you could have a day-to-day relationship with someone you see twice a year, So I think ultimately Jorge's seduced by the planet. It's it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing, is a line from the film, and he'd rather be with Otto, dream Otto, than disappoint real Otto or miss real Otto. And so I think I agree that it's kind of a quick drop off at the end, but I think once he's reached the point of no return, there is no return. He has a choice and he chooses to stay.
So how does that work as an allegory? I mean, I just put, is he dead? I mean, you can't just stay in a fantasy world, like in the sort of real, in the real side. Is he just detached? Or is there more? Because especially right before that is the pupa conversation, and don't know if he's ready. And I just, when you said that, I just remembered because I rewatched it this morning as I was mentioning it. It was 6.5 months ago when I saw it the first time. So, so I rewatched it, and that kind of just gave me shivers, because when he said that, I wasn't sure if he was talking about. So he's talking about the pupa, but then he could be talking. But then you're thinking about how how that's the same thing the father is going through, but then it could be kind of going the other way as well. Is the father ready to go and detach? So so what's the answer, Keely?
There isn't one. I'm sorry, Nat. I'm sorry.
I mean, Chekhov would leave it just like that. You know, there is a gunshot at the end, but then someone dies, but then these people's lives continue. And then it's up to the spectator to be like, oh, okay, so then I'm supposed to take all of this with me and, you know, make do. And so then, so I don't know. So, I mean, I don't know, perhaps in a very like real, like pragmatic way, there's tons of peoples, and we hear tons of like stories of people not having their fathers present in their lives, mine being one of them. And if you extrapolate to reality, then Papa wasn't there anymore. So then, you know, if we want to talk about and dive into like, perhaps let's give it a justifiable or, you know, a real, you know, pragmatic, real life, real world justification, then there's a ton of people that don't have dads.
Well, not to shut myself down, but in the end, the movie is about this relationship. So it doesn't matter whether he's dead, you know, in a coma or just never talking to him. The point is that that relationship is broken and severed at this point. And that's ultimately, you know, what matters, right? Because that's the focus of the film. So, well, what's next for Planet B234? More festivals, distribution.
Yeah, we're going to Tampa Bay Underground Film Festival in about 2 weeks. Next week.
Yeah.
But we're still pretty early in our festival run. We've still got about another year of seeing where we can take it.
That's great. How many of you? What number are we?
So we maybe you were actually the second one that we heard from.
Yeah.
We premiered at Vail in September.
Yeah.
And then you were the second person that we heard from, and then we went to Ridgefield in Connecticut in early October, and now we're going to Tampa Bay. And so yeah, we'll see where that takes us, and then how it can live on in a platform that people can access it, while we shift our focus forward onto the next.
And then, so what's next for everyone? What are all of you working on next?
Carlos, what are you working on next?
Oh, okay. Well, I am working on some new music. I have some new releases in December for my project named The Pulse Diaries. So releases in December, 2 singles, and then the full album at the beginning of next year. And I have some other music projects.
Your Bandcamp is what you like there for the Pulse Diaries?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Bandcamp.
Yes, Bandcamp. The Pulse Diaries.
It's in the comments. Everyone, go check out the Pulse Diaries on Bandcamp.
Yeah, the new album, the 3rd album, it's coming in at the beginning of next year. And some other music projects, and just waiting for the next Jorge and Keely movie.
Well, that kind of just defines a lot of people. Cesar?
Well, I like to start by saying that I've heard a couple of the new songs from Carlos, and they are amazing. So yeah, seriously, it's really, really super nicely designed sounds, and yeah, it's just really, really good. I'm working on new music. But I won't be ready very early next year. I think maybe by April I have it ready. And yeah, that's basically it. It will be an EP. I'm working on some ideas and developing stuff. I think that's as much as I can say.
Okay. Keely and Jorge, what is it like working together as a married couple? Because So I produced a film, and the director and the lead actress were married, and that production was so stressful that within a year, all the 3 couples that were mostly involved with making it were pregnant. Later, they made a short film together, oddly enough, called Planet, without any designation. And they decided they were not going to work together anymore.
Whoa.
Well, I mean, they might. I don't know. But my friend, the director, said, "Yeah, she doesn't want me to direct her anymore." You know. So what's it like working together? And what do you guys have planned next? And do you have anything planned separately?
Jorge, what's it like working together?
I honestly have to say that of course I love you, Keely, but like I feel that I can't. She's my creative partner. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to do anything. It's not that I don't want to do anything without her, but it's more like I feel like the creative juices that flow between us are incredible. And we're already writing. I mean, I'm writing a new feature, and that first draft is coming your way, Keely, soon, and for edits. And the logistics of that are going to be crazy because of COVID, honestly. And we're thinking of principal photography for summer of 2023, but COVID safety on set adds like $20,000 for a feature, and that alone. So that's not talking about like I need to pay the people. I want to pay people right. So then we want to, right? So yeah, that's what we're working on. And the movie's essentially 2 actors in New York City questioning their acting careers and the industry and the business. That's basically it. They are in the movie, in the new movie, they're rehearsing a dance piece, and it's like a very meditative piece in which they use to be able to cope with what's happening in the industry. Dance discipline is called Buto. It's a Japanese, avant-garde dance discipline, and in the movie they use that as a meditation of sorts in order to work through what's happening. It has perhaps a lot of similarities with Planet because Buto helps them transport themselves into other places. Sorry, a magic realism. But yeah, perhaps I could have said that in like 10 seconds better. But this is where we are, right? I can't. It takes me 20 minutes to explain something. So
you make it. I've done plenty of kind of word juggling here and stumbling through things. You make it sound very dialogue driven, which sounds the opposite of Planet. That's cool.
It is. It is.
I like when people have range.
I hope so. I mean, it's going to be great. And then also it's Keely and I acting in it. And I don't know. It's one of those things. And we go back to the original question, right? What is it working together? I feel like there's a level of trust that I wouldn't give to anybody else. Like during Planet, during principal photography, Keely would not let us move forward in a scene until we told the goddamn truth. Like, and I expect nothing less. You know what I mean? Like, and I am certain, and I put my hand. You can cut a finger. I know that Carlos Ivan and Cesar hold themselves into the same standards of like, no crap here, nothing but the truth, right? So,
yeah. The reason why it, at least in my head, everything worked pretty good. It's exactly what you're saying. The trust that we have when we're making music and we're creating sounds, and the trust that we have on each other, it's incredible and make things easier. And it's when we're making music, it's also like a marriage. So it's and the reason why he knows about my new songs is because I don't do anything that I don't show it to him. In his opinion, it's extremely important for me, so I always have to show it to him, and then he always sees things that I don't see, and vice versa. So we're always bouncing ideas back and forward, even if we're not working together. So the same thing happened with the movie. The trust, it's so big that everything flew and everything was very smooth working together.
Cool.
Yeah, I think how are we gonna go forward as individuals if we don't trust at least a small group of people? Like we need other people to point out the things that we're not seeing, so that then we can grow and become better at the things that we love.
Right.
We yeah, it's a very close knit. Like I'm just incredibly grateful to have, you know, Cesar and Carlos, in which I was an imbecile when it came to sound. I'm like, I didn't know any. I'm like, here you go, guys. This is our movie. Fix it. And then, right, Keely works with a designer, which is Valentin Peter, which Isela, which he's in Germany. It's like a marriage of director designer. She can tell you much better than me. I would be describing this in pedestrian terms, but that marriage and that trust is paramount.
All right, Keely.
Yeah. Yes. Working with your spouse is, I find very, so I echo a lot of what Jorge and Carlos, Ivan, and Cesar said, that like there's a level of trust that if you are able to establish in a creative relationship can just open so many doors for you. And I also would add to that too, that with that trust and intimacy and familiarity, especially that Jorge and I have, we're able to work quicker and on the fly together because we A, have a shorthand with each other, but B, also are able to be much more direct and I want to say blunt. I mean, I'm from New York. I speak very directly, and I have to like. I'm constantly like, "Oh, did that sound mean?" I don't know. But we are able to kind of just sort of cut to the chase, you know, and in a way that maybe would be harder to do with someone who, A, didn't know you, and B, didn't trust that everything you were doing was to find the truth of the story together. I think we're pretty good at working without the ego is like the last thing I think of. I don't care whose idea it was. I don't care how something comes up. I want to I want to be, like I said, Cesar and Carlos Ivan taught us about the movie. I don't pretend that that I went in knowing what this movie sounded like. And I also, though it sometimes slows things down, and maybe I could be making more if I wasn't like this, but I only work with people that I have the utmost creative respect for. I only work with people whose work I love. And so when you trust the artists that you're working with, it allows you to work more quickly, and also to kind of not know where you're going, but sense in your gut that you're heading in the right direction. And so that's easier when you're working with your husband. I will say also that Jorge and I have to kind of like we reach points sometimes where we're like, okay, now we're just going to be married for a day. We're not going to talk about the movie. We're not going to talk about the project. Like, we're going to be, because it's hard, and making art is consuming. You know, you don't just stop thinking about it. So yeah, I think you know, there are benefits, but also you've got to find your own like balance and workflow within it to make it work. But yes, I'm working with Jorge on the feature that he mentioned. We're also working with Valentin Isela, who did the costume design. He designed the great spacesuit that Yoko's character wears, and we're working with him on a short piece that we're going to shoot hopefully this summer in Germany. Surprise, Carlos, Ivan, and Cesar. We're going to talk to you about that. Didn't mean to tell you about it here. No, it's just, you know, when you find people whose work inspires you, and who you trust, you're like, okay, what else can we make together? So yeah, so that's next. That's short, and then the Buto film piece that Jorge spoke about. That's what's up. And we do work separately on things, but more and more, not so much. I don't know.
You just did a play together.
We did. I know, we're obnoxious. we just did a 2-person play together. Yeah.
It was
I don't know. When it works, you know?
Yeah.
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 Wow.
And also, also like I wouldn't. He's not here. I do think that Joe, our DP, is as important as Cesar and Carlos. Like, we literally handed Joe a script, and he was like, "All right, let's do this." So then, all of a sudden, he shoots us this ridiculously beautiful film. Every shot is like so carefully thought of, just like Cesar and Carlos. Like, it's just like this. Keely and trusting this entire process on, like, I trust your artistry, man. Here you go.
And that's special because Jorge had the connection to Cesar and Carlos Ivan, and then Joe, our cinematographer, was someone a friend of mine for a long time. And it's just so special when you get to connect people who are talented. Like, that's like my favorite thing about making things, is like, oh, your work is amazing and your work is amazing. You guys should, your work together would be electric. And yeah, Joe, the movie would look nothing like what it looks like without Joe.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that, but yeah, there's so many great shots and movement, and the underwater shot, and the lighting of all the planet stuff is so cool.
Yeah, he's truly gifted. It was like my favorite is that one shot of like 2-minute sequence when Otto's lost in the woods, because the music just like wraps it in such a gorgeous way, and then we never cut, and we shot that like 50 times, no joke. But then that was all. Joe, our DP, was the discipline, and he's like, no, back to 1. Here we go. That wasn't perfect. So until we got it. We're again, luck, sure, right place, right time, sure, but also like surrounding yourself with people that are unique. And we throw the word gifted around, but it just means so much. Gifted is such a perfect word to describe each and every one of them.
Right. All right. Well, it's definitely shows on screen. You guys really made something, special. It looks great, sounds great story, and all that. So thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Nat.
My pleasure.
Thank you for all your hard work too.
Yes.
Congratulations on the festival.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You can still see Planet B234 at Lake County Film Festival until November 29th. So get a ticket now and check it out if you haven't already. Hopefully you already did before you came here. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a good
night.